This is ProBlogger.
Hey there and welcome to episode 229 of the ProBlogger podcast. My name is Darren Rouse and I'm the blogger behind ProBlogger, a blog, podcast, event, job board, series of ebooks, courses, all designed to help you to start an amazing blog and to build profit around that blog. Now you can learn more about ProBlogger over at ProBlogger.com. In today's episode, we're continuing this series of blogger stories where we're hearing from readers of ProBlogger and listeners of this podcast, telling their stories of starting a blog and some of the opportunities that that blog has opened up for them. They're also sharing some of their mistakes and tips for those of you who are starting out, but also, and you'll hear it today, tips that I think are really relevant for those who are along the way with their blogging as well. Particularly today, we've got a couple of tips that I think are particularly relevant for bloggers who've been around for a while, bloggers who maybe have been blogging for a few years and things haven't quite worked. So today is really relevant for both new bloggers and older bloggers as well. This series started back in episode 221, if you haven't heard them, and we've been pumping them out on a daily basis for the last week, and there's quite a few there now, and we're hearing from DIY bloggers, travel bloggers, recipe bloggers, nutritional bloggers, all kinds of bloggers. So today we are hearing from two bloggers, both from the same niche, and they're both finance bloggers. And both of these guys, who I met for the first time in 2017 in person, I met them at our SuccessIncubator event in Dallas. And both of these guys are a lot of fun. They both actually spoke at the event and did amazing sessions. So there's a lot of wisdom behind both of them. And I do encourage you to check out their blogs. You can find today's show notes with links to their blogs as well as a few things that they mention along the way over at ProBlogger.com/podcast/229. And you can also leave a comment there. And remember, all of this is part of our launch sequence for our new course for those of you who want to start a blog. So if you're thinking about starting a blog, head over to ProBlogger.com/start-a-blog. And I'm going to come back at the between these stories to just make a few comments, draw out a few points, and then at the end I want to tell you something new that I haven't told you yet about this Starter Blog course, so stay tuned right to the end today. So the first blogger I want to introduce you to today is Deacon Hayes from wellkeptwallet.com. He's got an inspirational story. He's gone from being a wood flooring salesperson to full-time blogger over the last few years and has some really useful tips. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, some of these are quite relevant for those of you who've been blogging for a while now. So I'm going to hand over to Deacon.
Creating great content. Finding an audience. Building engagement. Monetizing your blog. This is ProBlogger.
Hi, my name is Deacon Hayes from wellkeptwallet.com, where we help people save money, make money, and pay off debt. Back in 2009, my wife and I got married, and we decided we were going to combine our finances, right? And so when we did that, we realized that we had $52,000 in debt, which for us in our 20s was a lot. This was outside of mortgage debt, and we were severely in the negative. And so we knew we needed to put together a plan to pay it off in a short period of time. So hence created Well Kept Wallet as kind of a way to track our journey, hold us accountable, but also to help other people that were trying to pay off debt by giving tips on how to save money, make money, and strategies to pay off debt. And so originally, that was the idea, but we were able to pay off all of our debt in 18 months, which was amazing, right? We set this goal, we hit it, and now I was like, wow, this would be so much more fun than selling wood flooring, which is what I was doing at the time. So then it led me on a journey to kind of figure out how could I make money with the blog, and so turn that into a full-time job. And so that's what I've done today. But, when I first started out, one of the things I was most grateful for was learning SEO, search engine optimization, because, initially when I started the blog, no one was reading it, right? I would tell my friends about it, and it was like deaconhayes.wordpress.com, and so it wasn't a legit site. But then I learned SEO. I put it on wellkeptwallet.com, started ranking for some, really competitive keywords. getting traffic, and then figuring out how to monetize it. So really, encourage people that start out to kind of learn those different ways to drive traffic early on. So you're not just writing content that doesn't get read. But I did make some mistakes along the way. One of the things was I would just write just to write, right? Not with any kind of intent. I had an audience, I 5 people or whatever, and I'm like, I have to, publish content. And so they were short articles, they weren't thorough, and it just really didn't do the job. And so now, we write articles with purpose, and don't write just to write. And so I really encourage people that are starting out to do that. And, along the way, we had a lot of cool opportunities, been featured on U.S. News and World Report, Yahoo Finance, and even my wife and I were on the homepage of CNN Money one day for like our worst money mistake we made as newlyweds or something. So it wasn't like the most glorious thing, but the tips were very helpful, I think, for people. But that was just a good way to get exposure. We used Haro for that, which is help a reporter out, and reached out to these different publications, shared her story, and we found that to be super helpful. And now we get over 700,000 page views a month, which is crazy because last year we were getting a fraction of that. And so now the blog is not a hobby anymore. I mean, it's a full-fledged business, makes 6 figures a year. It's awesome opportunity. Never would have thought I would be at this place with it. And so one of the things that I really encourage people that are starting out to do is to really narrow down your focus. Like, what do you want to write about? When I first started, I had like 40 different categories. I would just think of something, I'd categorize it, and then they just started adding up, right? Now we have 3, and we kind of edge outside of that a little bit, but really those 3 dictate the type of content that we write. And you can't be good at everything, right? So you have to focus in on what are you really good at? I was good at figuring out how to save money, and going through a budget line by line and figuring out how to save the most money. I was really good at making money on the side. I'd go to garage sales and flip stuff online, I drive pizza for pizza delivery. There's all these things that I was doing to basically help kind of move the needle forward. And so those were the categories that we stuck with, right? So really encourage you, if you're starting out, look for those categories that you're really good at, that really can add value to your readers, and think about less is more. Don't write just to write, write with purpose.
You're listening to Pro Blogger.
That was Deacon Hayes from wellkeptwallet.com. Love that story. And it's one that I've heard echoed, I guess, in many stories over the years. And I wanted to share it for a few reasons today. Firstly, as we heard in yesterday's episode from Joanna Penn, the power of search engine optimization. Deacon mentioned that he was really grateful that he learned SEO. And actually, at our Success Incubator this year, he did a whole session on SEO. It was one of the main reasons that his blog went from a hobby, something he did on the side, to becoming a full-time thing. SEO really changed the trajectory of his business, and so learning that is such a powerful thing. The mistakes that Deacon mentioned, he used to write just to write. He used to write short and non-thorough articles, and now he writes with purpose. And that, I really want to hammer that home. Write with purpose is such a powerful thing. Actually, every post you write has the potential to build your brand, to change the life of your reader, to make a connection with them. Every post you write has the potential to be shared by your readers as well and help you to grow your blog. And none of those things is going to happen if you just write just to write. If you're just creating content because you want to publish content, then it's not actually going to make any difference. And in many ways, you're wasting your time. But if you're writing with purpose, if you're thinking about who is searching for the content that you're writing, what questions they have, how you can change their life in some way, you're going to actually, every time you publish something, you're going to publish something that can build your business. And that is going to make the world a better place in some way as well. And that's why Deacon's blog is now, 700,000 page views a month. That's why he has a full-time income. It's because he writes with purpose. Deacon mentioned their Harrow. I just want to mention that again. I will link to it in the show notes today, helpareporter.com. This is a service that will hook you up with reporters, with journalists who are looking for people to quote in their articles. This is what got Deacon on the television. This is what got him featured in a variety of websites. It's a great service. If you are looking to build your audience through mainstream media, you might want to check that one out. And the last thing I'll just emphasize there is something that we've heard numerous times over this series already, and I didn't really intend for us to go down this path. I didn't realize how many people were going to say the same thing, but narrow down your focus, narrow down your niche. He said he went from 40 categories to 3. And I think that's really well worth saying. And I think this is a really good tip, not only for new bloggers, but for established bloggers as well. This is advice we've heard from our tech bloggers in episode 222. We saw it in the Orlando dating ideas blogger that we had in 226, episode 226, and even Chris in the travel episode as well, who said, think about who you're not going to serve and be really intentional about just serving a narrow niche of people. This is great advice. Really, if you have had a blog for a while now, I want to encourage you to think about, what categories do you have? What are you writing about that's not getting the traction? Deacon's advice there was to really think about what you're good at. Identify what you're good at writing about. Identify where you are adding the most value to your readers and focus upon those topics. I'm sure Deacon goes slightly off topic from time to time, but going from 40 to 3 categories to me is a really smart move. And so if you are starting a blog, really think about narrowing that focus down, becoming the expert in a smaller topic. Unless you've got a lot of time and energy on your hands, you're probably going to find a lot more traction doing it that way. And if you've been blogging for a while, great advice as well as we go into 2018. What did you write about last year that really didn't get the traction, that really didn't add much value? Maybe strip out some of those categories for a while and just focus on, the things that really are getting the traction. Thank you so much, Deacon, for your story. I want to move now to Jim Wang from wallethacks.com. Jim is another person that I met this year in Dallas, and we actually rode mechanical bulls together, but that's a whole other story. I might leave you to go for a hunt for the video evidence of that. I think you'll find it on my Instagram account if you really are desperate. We had a great time in Dallas, and Jim's got a great story as well. Some similarities with Deacon's story as well. He's obviously a finance blogger too, but I'll hand it over to Jim and then I'll wrap things up towards the end.
Creating great content and building your audience. This is Pro Blogger.
Hi, my name is Jim Wang. I run Wallet Hacks, wallethacks.com. It's a personal finance blog that I started about 2 years ago, and I share the strategies I use to get ahead, financially and in life. And it's actually the second blog that I started. I started one in 2004 called Bargaineering, also about personal finance, and grew it to a point where I was able to sell it a bunch of years later for a significant sum. I started blogging back then not because I wanted to start a business, but because I had no idea how to manage my money. And, I started my first day of work. They handed me this employee manual. I had to make all these decisions about, I had to start a 401k. What do you want to invest in? Here are the fees. It was just a big mess. And so I thought to myself, if I'm having trouble with this, maybe other people are. And, I'd always loved the internet. 2004, blogs weren't really a huge thing. They had only just started becoming popular. And I thought, I can start a blog. It'd be a fun little hobby. If nothing else, I can connect with other people and we can learn from each other in a way that was better than me just trying to read a manual or read things online, not really knowing whether or not I was right or wrong. And my friends, they weren't really that interested in talking about it, as often is the case. Like, people don't talk about money in person. But, on the internet, you can talk about anything. So I thought I'd start a blog, and over time, it sort of grew in popularity. I learned that I wasn't the only one writing about money, and I started networking and emailing and instant messaging other bloggers, and there were maybe around a dozen of us back then. Nowadays, personal finance blogging is huge. There are thousands of blogs out there. But back then, it was a much, much smaller community. We all knew each other. We shared ideas. It was really great. I didn't I just wanted to just learn more, and it wasn't to start a business. And when I think back to it, what am I most grateful for in starting the business is the fact that I started it. Back then, since blogging wasn't as big, there weren't a lot of blogs about blogging. And actually, ProBlogger was one of the ones that I read that really gave me the confidence to think, hey, you know what? There are people out there doing these things and making a little bit of money. If I were to look back and think of some mistakes, it was that I treated it like a hobby for far too long. It was easy come, started a blog, people started showing up. It didn't really feel like a business, so I treated it like a hobby. And I didn't invest in the things that I should have, like investing in technology, investing in people, investing in tools, and all the other things that a business does in order to grow it bigger than a one-man operation. And it wasn't until a couple years into it that I started doing that, and it really paid off dividends down the road. So if I were to think back to mistakes, it's really the investment aspect of it. There are a lot of good things that have happened as a result of starting a blog. First off is that I've learned a lot about managing money because I write about it all the time. So our finances are relatively strong as a result of just being responsible. A blog also keeps you accountable to your readers, some who you know and are friends with you in person, and some who are complete strangers, but it's all the same. You're sharing your story, and people will call you out if you're inconsistent or if you're faking it. And that accountability is very honest and very good. The other good thing is that when I started the blog, I was working a corporate job full time. And now I work for myself running Wallet Hacks. And that's in part because I started a business and it gave us the financial freedom to be able to pursue the things that we want. So that's always floating out there for folks that are wanting to start a business. If you reach success, that's a good thing, because that means you can focus more of your time and energy on this. And, a lot of folks will say, well, I start a blog. I don't want to make money. I don't want it to be about money. I would say stop thinking about it in those terms. It's not about, making money is bad and not making money is a noble good. Think about it like this. If you're doing this on the side and you really love what you're doing and your readers really love what you're doing, but you're not getting paid, you still have to work a job to pay the bills. If this project can earn you a living, that means you can spend more of your time and energy pursuing the things that you enjoy and the things that your readership wants you to pursue. So think about it in those terms, and you might not be so worried about making money from your project. If I were to come up with a tip for new bloggers, it would just be start, just get into it, reach out to as many people as you can. You want to find folks that are roughly at your level in terms of, blog knowledge and maturity, so that you guys can learn together and grow together, make some of the same mistakes. And you want to reach out to potential mentors that may be a year ahead of you, 2 years ahead of you in terms of size and development. That way they can point you in some of the good directions. I would avoid trying to reach out to superstars, in part because they may not remember what it's like to grow a blog from 0 to 10 people a day to 100 people a day. And they may not be current on what the trends are today to grow it to that size. So you want to try to build like a mastermind group or a little cohort of folks that you can just talk to who are just dealing with the same struggles that you are. That way you can both commiserate, give each other confidence, and then learn from the mistakes that each of you are making. And most importantly is don't give up. I've seen so many blogs over the years. I've been doing this since 2004, and I've seen hundreds of blogs that have started that I thought were really good, but for whatever reason, they failed. They stopped. Life got in the way. Sometimes they start a family, and the hobby time that they had after work or before work that was once there is no longer gone. Try to persevere. And if you do, you'll look back and you'll be amazed at what you've been able to accomplish. Thanks for letting me share my story with you, and I hope you learned something from it. Bye.
How to build and monetize your blog. This is ProBlogger.
That was Jim Wang from wallethacks.com. Great voice for radio or for podcasting, Jim. Thanks for sharing your story. Now, a few things there in Jim's story. Again, some similarities, I guess, in terms of why he started blogging to Deacon. But I really want to draw out what he was talking about with the mistakes that he made of treating it as a hobby for too long and not investing into the business as if it was a business. This is really echoes from my story as well. And for me, first couple of years of my blogging, it was a hobby, and I treated it maybe as a business one day, but I didn't actually treat it as a business today. And really, for me, I saw exactly the same thing. When I started to treat my blog as a business and invested more time and started to invest a little bit of money into the business, it really did pay off for me. I wouldn't suggest you invest tens of thousands of dollars from day one, but begin to think about investing and getting serious about your business. It's more the intent and the amount of time and the intentionality, writing with purpose, as we heard in Deacon's story. That is part of the investment that you bring. But gradually over time, being able to invest in the technology, getting some better tools, and people as well. And this, again, is a great tip for those of you maybe who've been blogging for a couple of years now. Maybe you're not quite getting that traction. Maybe it's time to begin to ramp things up in terms of some of the investment that you can do, because really for me, for Jim, and for many other bloggers, this is something that we look back on with, I guess, gratitude that we did take those steps, that we pushed rather than just coasted. Also, just the advice of starting. It sounds like the most simple advice that you could give someone, but so many people need to hear that advice. And maybe you've been thinking about having that blog for a long time. This is the moment to really do that, to get started, make a commitment to do that. And this is a great time to do it because we've got this opportunity of the course that's going to walk you through it. And I do want to offer you an extra little opportunity for those of you who are thinking about starting a blog. Jim's advice there is to get a cohort, to get a group of people around you and to work with people at your own level. That's a very powerful tip. Many people try and reach out to the superstar blogger in their niche, and that's not always the best person to help you because, as Jim says, they're on a different level, but they also are getting pitched a lot of times every day. They're hearing from a lot of people who want their help. You're much more likely to get help from people at your own level or people just ahead of you. And as part of our Starter Blog course, we want to give you an opportunity to get together with a cohort of people at the same level as you. And we're actually starting a Facebook group purely for people who are starting a blog. We've got a Facebook group for those of you who are already going. If you haven't joined that already, just do a search on Facebook for Pro Blogger Community, and you'll find a cohort of, I think we're up over 10,000 bloggers now who are blogging already. But we want to start a smaller group just for people working through this Starter Blog course. And so if you sign up for the Starter Blog course, which is completely free, just go to problogger.com/starterblog. We will send you some details. And as part of that, you'll also get an invitation to the Starter Blog Facebook group as well. And that'll be a place where we can work through the course together, where you can ask questions, where you can interact with other bloggers at a similar level to you. And also you can make suggestions on how we can improve that course along the way as well, because this is the first version of it, and we do want to continue to improve it and make it better and better and better. We have already had, as I'm recording this in December, and this is going live on the 4th or 5th, I think, of January. This is going on the 4th. So even 2 weeks before this episode goes live, we've already had almost 500 people sign up for the course. So there's going to be a lot of people going through it together. And the advantage of that is that we are going to be able to promote each other's blogs. And that's what we want this group to be about as well. It's not just about learning together, but we're also going to try and find some creative ways of promoting each other's brand new blogs. We want to help you not only to set up your blog, but we want to help you to find some readers for that blog through this process. And one of the ways that we're going to do that is through the Facebook group, where you'll have opportunity to share your blog with the rest of the community and perhaps even begin to link to one another. So thanks for listening today. Thank you so much to Deacon, to Jim for sharing your stories. Very inspirational there. And I hope those of you who are wanting to start a finance blog will have appreciated that, but also others of you as well. We've got 3 more stories coming up. One tomorrow on the 5th of January. And we're going to hear from someone who's got a completely different niche. I never even knew that there was a blog on this particular topic, voice coaching. And that blogger has an interesting story to tell. You're actually going to hear a little bit of singing in that episode as well. And then next week, we've got 2 more blogs as well. We've got another tech blogger's story. And then we're going to hear from a blogger who is writing on another slightly unusual topic. I didn't know there were blogs about it, but it's a blog for women who live on islands. Okay, so they're the 3 upcoming episodes before we get this course launched. Again, if you want to start back at the start of this series of blogger stories, go back to problogger.com/podcast/221 to hear the first in the series, and there's been quite a few since. Thanks for listening today. Today's show notes at problogger.com/podcast/229. Thanks for listening. Chat tomorrow.
You've been listening to Pro Blogger. If you'd like to comment on any of today's topics or subscribe to the series, find us at problogger.com/podcast. Tweet us at ProBlogger. Find us at facebook.com/ProBlogger or search ProBlogger on iTunes.
This episode of the Pro Blogger podcast was edited by the team at Podcast Motor, who offer a great range of services, including helping you to set up and launch your podcast, as well as ongoing editing and production of the podcast that you produce. You can check them out at podcastmotor.com.